Asking somebody, how come that person doesn't like you? I don't know. That's their problem. I like me.
I think Gino knows why, but I'm not going to be the one to talk about it. And if he wants to talk about it, then he can do so.
Summitt and Auriemma each declined repeated requests from ESPN for an on-camera interview for this story. Summitt saying she wanted to concentrate on the upcoming NCAA tournament. Auriemma saying, quote, "If it has anything to do with her, I want nothing to do with it."
Connecticut controlling the tip and the steal quickly by Latina Davis. And just like that, you have to watch out for that quickness of Tennessee.
The rivalry was born 13 years ago when the storied Lady Vols came into Storrs, Connecticut to face an upstart Connecticut team and star center Rebecca Lobo. On the line was the #1 ranking, and the seeds of what was to come were planted.
I remember coming out from warm-ups, and Tennessee was on our half of the court, and we asked them to move, and they wouldn't move, and it just fired some of our players up.
UConn won that game and then beat the Lady Vols 2 months later to win the national championship. UConn has won 13 of 21 games against Tennessee in a matchup that became the most highly anticipated and watched game each year.
It seemed like every time the two teams played, something was at stake. It had all the ingredients of just great drama.
Somehow it became like one of the biggest rivalries in the women's game. You feel the intensity every single game that we play. Regular season, playoff, every single game is like the championship.
As the stakes were raised, the tension between the two schools and two coaches mounted, and their styles clashed.
What if you're driving down a dark highway in Tennessee, car broken down, it's Gino. Do you drive by? Do you stop?
Well, I stop and ask if I can help him.
I'd walk.
Pat Summitt always says the right thing. Gino Auriemma never says the right thing.
Jackie McMullen is a columnist for the Boston Globe and the co-author of Auriemma's 2006 book, Gino.
If you ask Gino, what do you want from Pat Summitt? I know what he would say. He'd say, lighten up already. Come on, this is fun. We're selling the game. Will you just, play along, will you? And if you ask Pat Summitt, what do you want from Gino Auriemma? I think she would say, once in a while, can you take this seriously? Can you show me and the game a little more respect? He's been poking and prodding and taunting Pat Summitt probably since the day they met.
And as UConn began to slice into Tennessee's reign, beating the Lady Vols in the 2003 and 2004 NCAA championship game, the Huskies also began slicing into Tennessee's recruiting base. That's when those close to both programs said things got nasty.
In the early days of this rivalry, they didn't recruit the same player. But in the last 5 to 7 years, they're going after the same kids. And it's bloodthirsty, and it's serious, and it's ugly.
The ongoing feud between both schools reached NCAA headquarters here in Indianapolis when the SEC turned in UConn for a recruiting violation after receiving a complaint from Tennessee. Tennessee charged that someone on the Huskies staff arranged for then high school junior Maya Moore to tour ESPN studios, just 50 miles from the UConn campus. The NCAA determined that to be a secondary rules violation. Some believe Summitt, already fed up with Auriemma's digs, considered the UConn recruiting violation the last straw and could be at least part of the reason why she canceled the series.
In baseball analogy, it would be the Yankees saying they don't want to play the Red Sox anymore.
It was a game that the average guy who makes fun of women's basketball would tune in and watch.
She was willing to play at Connecticut when they were up and coming, when no one else would. A lot of the major programs wouldn't. She's always done the right thing for the game, and this is the one time that she hasn't.
I think when it first came out, people were really shocked about, well, why? Everybody wants to know why. But, now that it's going on, I mean, it's time for other rivalries to start coming up.
Where? Between who? Connecticut and Rutgers have built up a pretty good rivalry, but, again, is Joe Schmo, who listens to talk radio out in California, caring about the Connecticut-Rutgers game or the Tennessee-LSU game the way they cared about Connecticut-Tennessee? No, they're not.
I think they both have to understand that they're much better off together than they are apart if they really do want to promote the women's game. And it's sad that the game still needs to be promoted, but it does.
Tennessee and UConn could still meet if they advance through the NCAA tournament to play in the championship game. However, at news conferences on the eve of their opening round games, it appears both coaches are no closer to a reconciliation. What is your relationship like now with Gino?
Well, my phone hasn't been ringing, nor have I called him.
How would you describe your relationship with Pat at this time?
I don't think that has any. She's not playing here this weekend.
Shelley Smith reporting. Tennessee opens tournament play this evening, 9 Eastern on ESPN2 against Oral Roberts. Connecticut at 7 Eastern against Cornell. Let's say good day and happy Easter to Dick Patrick of USA Today. This rivalry, which I guess you could call a feud at this point, what is it doing for or to the women's game?
Well, I think you could take the attitude that there's no such thing as bad publicity. So it's creating some attention for the women's game, but at the same time, it's detracting from some of the games and some of the other issues of value that exist in women's basketball. It can be a distraction, too.
How much does the sport, though, need these two teams to play, if only during the regular season?
Well, it helps, but the way women's basketball is growing, there are other teams. You know, Tennessee and UConn, I think, have won 9 out of the last 13 NCAA titles. But there are other teams that can draw interest to the sport.
Take us behind the carefully spoken public comments. What do they really think of each other, to your understanding?
Well, I think it's like any relationship. It has its ups and downs. There have been times that you can sense there's genuine admiration and respect toward one another, and then there's other times that there's animosity.
Now, to the extent they're not playing this year in the regular season, what is your understanding of the real reason why this regular season contract was not renewed?
Well, I don't think that anybody really knows what the real reason is. The inference that fans are drawing is that maybe Pat is upset over what she thought were shady dealings with recruits. So the trouble, I think, is that they just go head-to-head so many times for national titles and for some of the top players in the country who can determine what team's going to win a title. And you know, at this, in this profession, at this level, the stakes and the emotions run very high.
Obviously. All right, Dick Patrick, USA Today. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.